Hello, everyone. I'm going to go over the company growth slide deck. One of the leading foundation entrepreneurial companies available to us, and that's the Ewing, Marion Kauffman Foundation. They are very large. They provide many funds to entrepreneurs and entrepreneurial education. And they have a lot of state trends within the United States. I want to go over some information there, which I think you'll find exciting. So here, if we take a look, we can see that Florida is absolutely leading the pack from this time span from 1998 to 2020, and it's still progressing in that area. So here, state trend rates for new entrepreneurs. So Florida is a hotbed for entrepreneurs indeed. We do have a lot of universities offering entrepreneurial courses. FGCU just came out with a master's program last year in entrepreneurship. So we're very excited to see more and more entrepreneurs in the state of Florida. So next we have early stage entrepreneurs. This is also a state trend. And you can see Florida, in fact, is leading. Nevada was, and then all of a sudden they just took a bit of a nosedive there. The same with Washington. But Florida is still progressing and trending upwards. So we're very excited about that as well. I want to bring up the Inc. 5000, which is an excellent resource for fast-growing companies. So I want to go touch on this a little bit here, and because we can use a lot of their analytics to measure our own business and businesses we're working with. So here, Skills, for instance, was a company that was ranked #1 in 2017. They started in 2012. By 2016, they had 54 million in revenue. That's quite some significant growth. They're looking at the 3-year growth was 50,000% of growth. That's a huge amount of growth. And then they wound up with 111 employees at this particular time. Let's kind of dissect this a little bit and it doesn't really matter what the business was. I mean, they are, a mobile streaming, video stream gaming for live sports events and so forth. But whatever the business is, we want to look at the analytics behind it. So here we can see quite feasible to continue with this type of startup growth. Startup companies grow very, very fast. Large companies do not grow quite as fast, right? So we can see that instantly. So here, let's take a look. If we're looking at this 50,000% growth within a 3-year period, we cannot expect that to continue over the next 3-year period until 2019. $271 trillion. Now, it's just not feasible. As the company really starts to grow and gain that traction, it's very difficult to continue that level of growth. So be curious just to have you take a look and see where Skills was in 2019 and where they are today and what type of growth they really have. Yes, it's much harder for large companies to grow at this rate. And although Skills is still considered a startup, but it's at the tail end of the startup phase. So yeah, you might want to take a look and see what you come up with there. It'd be fun to see. Now, PepsiCo is another large company, of course. Now, their revenue, they lost revenue, right? Their revenue declined by almost 5% from 2014 to 2017, around the same time period. So what do you think happened in this next section? Did it grow? Did it continue to decline? Well, it actually grew a little bit more than the decline that it had prior for certain upsets along the way. And so you might want to just take a look and see where they were in 2020. Just fun to take a look at that and see the progression. Incidentally, it's very, very difficult for large companies to grow at 10% or more. That's very, very impressive. So it's really unheard of for most large companies to grow at that particular rate, usually single-digit growth. Now, benchmarking is another area that we can use to help us with our business and a business we're working with. So benchmarking, we're benchmarking our business compared to other businesses within our industry. And so we're looking to see, well, how are they performing compared to how we are performing? Yes, we'd like to use industries that have sort of a bell-shaped curve to them, where they have, a low amount of revenue and income, and average and high. So they're performers in different bell-shaped areas. It just makes it easy for us to find our place to see, rather than just a flat line industry that has very little irregularity, but it gives us a richer data to work with. There are certain caveats, of course, because it's very difficult to find a perfect match. Businesses in the same industry, but they function differently, and we may differentiate ourselves differently from the industry. And so it's very difficult to find an exact match, but we can use whatever data we can to help us along the way. So in a way, we can normalize the data. We really can't compare apples to apples because we just don't have that exact same match. Now, one thing about best practice, we always, we hear the term, oh, we want to perform with the best practice, but best practice really only means that you're average. You're just meeting the average of best practice. We want to differentiate ourselves to be better than the competition. So something else to consider as we're benchmarking, we want to try to move in a better position. So here there are different other metrics that we can use to analyze the industry. One here, looking at skills again, we can look at the amount of revenue per amount of employees to make decisions moving forward. Here we know Skills had 111 employees in 2016, earned 54 million in revenue, right? Gross revenue. So here we can say that with this information, each employee generates a revenue of 488. Now that doesn't mean that each employee brings in that much money. It just means that if we look at revenue per employee for the amount of employees that the company has, the revenue is 488,000. All right, and then what are we paying each employee? Skills was paying them 200,000 a year. So we can look at that and say, all right, if we increase the amount of employees and our revenue goes up by a similar rate, then it would make sense for us to increase the number of employees. Now, if that doesn't work, of course, then you wouldn't, but it gives us another matrix that we can look at the revenue per employee. Now, there are some assumptions that we're looking for in this course, right? One of the assumptions is that a company has a good product market fit, that they have traction, they're earning money, they're in the business, they're working in the business, right? They have traction, they're starting to have some sort of growth. The other thing is that the entrepreneur has a desire to grow. Many small businesses, some mom and pop shops, may not be interested in growing. They may be very happy with the day in, day out work of what they're doing, and they may not really be interested in growing, putting that extra effort into maybe franchising or opening up another store or several stores in other locations. So they're perfectly fine the way they are. They don't want to put the extra effort into growth. They just like to keep the status quo. And we appreciate those businesses, but those are not the businesses we want to be working with. We want to be, in this course, we want to be working with businesses that desire to grow. We always want to keep in mind that we have customer attrition, so that with however many customers we have in our customer base, there'll always be some customers that fall off and go elsewhere. It could be just as simple as moving out of the area and they don't have access to your product or service any longer. But there may be many other reasons as well. Maybe a competitor comes in that makes a better presentation to them, many different reasons. So there's always people leaving. We always are losing our customers along the way, and we need to continually work on gaining more customers. So those are assumptions that we're working with. So we look at methods of growth. We're looking like, let's see the early startup days. What are you really doing? You're spending a lot of time working on your website, attracting customers to go to that website or a store if it's brick and mortar, of course, but sometimes even a brick and mortar store has a website. And today, at least, enticing customers to share social media posts. I mean, that's we are posting, have our employees post, and we want our customers to post as well on social media. These are early stage types of activities that we engage in, right? So, having customers come to the website more often, right? Maybe we start a Kickstarter campaign because we're early startup. We want to get some donations and gain some traction that way. So any measurable behavior to get our customers to make a purchase, that's really what we're working on. We're not really focused on growing the company in the early stage. We're just focused on getting those customers. And so much different than going into the growth stage where you want to grow the company. So you're not thinking you still think of the individual customers, but you're thinking more in terms of growth itself for the company. So beyond the startup phase, what we're going to be looking at here in module 3 is adding revenue streams. Also, we're selling products to other markets. So going into adjacent markets or other markets, that's our module 3 GoPro case study. And then in module 4, we're looking at growing distribution. And that doesn't necessarily mean manufacturing where you're distributing a product or service. It can be distributing through a service as well. So we'll be looking at that more closely and improving the sales funnel. We have that sales funnel. We bring our customers into the top, making them aware of our business and then bringing them down that sales funnel. So how can we improve that? We'll be going over that in the Hilux case in module 4. And then we'll be ending with our last case study on Fitbit in module 5 to improve customer retention. So each case study has its own quirks and problems, issues with these particular areas, and we'll be focusing on those areas within those case studies. So let's take a look at traction. So when we look at a traction model, right, we're looking at the company's goal for growth. Incidentally, when we think about goals, the company goal, their long-term strategy is their goal, right? And so we want to be able to measure that goal somehow. So that long-term goal, that strategic direction needs to be measured somehow. So it needs to be written in a way that it can be measured. Otherwise, how do you know when you've arrived? You need to be able to have those measurements in hand. So speaking of measurements, let's look at some ways we can go about doing that. A revenue target here, right? We use our sales funnel to achieve targets. Yes, we do. But here, let's take a look at this. If we're starting at a 3-month phase here, we're just really kind of just fine-tuning our value proposition statement. We're just trying to get customers to attract. We don't have a lot going on at this point. We're still kind of massaging the business. At 12 months, we're hoping to have 40 customers. 24 month, we're hoping to have 400 customers, and by the 3rd year, 4,000. We're really hoping to scale to that 3-year mark. This is an example. Now, so how can we go about doing this? This is a percentage growth, but let's take a look. So our customer goal is 40 customers. So here we are in the 1st year, we would like to have 40 customers at that point. So how do we go about doing that? Well, we know in our sales funnel, we know that we have leads. These are the people that are have not become aware of us yet, but just becoming aware of us. And we want to get them to be more aware of our product, get them to go down that funnel to become interested and desire the product, and then of course, make a purchase. But here we have leads, or how many people must be made aware of the product, where the trials are the people that actually sample the product, right? They give it a try, and they see if they're going to, or they get to the point where they're ready to make a purchase. So how do we go about doing this? We can say that, let's assume it's an estimate of 10% leads will try the product and 10% of trials will become customers. So if we look at the 10-10 percentage, I mean, it just works itself out very nicely here. 10% here of leads, people that would be interested in purchasing the product, become the trials, which would be 400, 10% of the 4,000. And then the actual customers are 40. We can look at it this way. Again, this is what we're hoping to gain over time as we traction. But if we're looking at this, then at this point, to get those 40 customers, we need to make our product or service available to 4,000 customers. So given the 10% of leads and 10% of trials. So here's a formula. We can work this in. If you're interested in doing so, you can see the leads, the trials, you can wind up with 40. All right, so here we go. I just wanted to go over that briefly with you so you had a feel for this slide deck. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next module. Thank you so much.